I told my body push, and it worked with me, and it guided me to really getting through my labor. With my first daughter, Annabelle, I had a traditional hospital birth. So with your traditional hospital birth, you have very traditional procedures. For instance, you get admitted, you go into like a waiting room, not the room you're gonna give birth in, you get an IV put into you right away, or you get asked when you want your epidural. At the time, I didn't think much of the epidural. I know a lot of friends and family members who had actually had the epidural, so to me it was just the step before having a baby. Even the process of delivery is very clinical. I mean, you're laying down with your knees like touching your nose. It's the most uncomfortable position ever, but if you were like me then, you'd think that's the only way to give birth. And at that time, I didn't really consider there was any other option than a traditional hospital birth. Over the next 5 years, I started to transition into a holistic lifestyle. I started to learn that giving birth at home can actually be beneficial to both the mother and the baby. So when I found out I was expecting again with our second daughter, Adeline, I knew that I wanted to have a home birth. We met with a few midwives and, just wanted to hear more about their views on home births. Working with a good midwife, I think, was really key in our situation and really made me feel comfortable with my choice of having a home birth. So the day I went into labor, it was your typical average day. I had been anticipating to have Adeline already. I was 39 weeks, big, round, sweaty, and ready to give birth. That evening, my daughter Annabelle had asked if we can go see Finding Dory, and I knew either we saw it that evening or we probably wouldn't see it in theaters. So halfway through the movie, it felt like I've entered a 4D version of Finding Dory. My water started to break as I was sitting down, and I whispered to my husband's ear, "I think my water just broke." So my cousin and my husband, they helped me out, and it was all fine. And we got into the car, we called our midwife, and she had said, "Okay, awesome, just keep me posted." And from there on, we were in constant communication with her. We drove home, and as soon as we got home, I was like, "Okay, everyone, let's get some rest." Well, I didn't know how long my labor would be at home. I did have some doubts, like some scaredness, that I was nervous. I was nervous that somehow the home birth would be longer than the traditional hospital birth. I remember laying on the bed and I had to get up because the pain was so intense on my lower back. So I got up and was leaning against the wall. I tried like hoovering over the bed. I tried like moving around in different positions, but nothing was really doing it. I remember that in one of the birthing classes, my midwife suggested using my birthing ball. So I got on all fours and kind of just hoovered over my birthing ball, and that was the position that I was most content in. Around midnight, my contractions were about 5 minutes apart. I remember my husband calling the midwife and just letting her know where we were at, and she said she was on her way. Around 1:30, she arrived at our house, and she called my husband when she was outside to let us know that she was here. So at this point, I was in active labor, and my contractions stayed at a steady 4 to 5 minutes apart. I remember her entering my bedroom where I was at, still on the floor, on all fours, hugging my birthing ball, and she checked the baby's heartbeat and just came and did whatever she did. I honestly don't remember what she was doing, but I wasn't disturbed by her being there. I remember her telling me, "Oh, the birthing tub is ready. Whenever you want, you can go in." I finally got up and I walked over to the tub, and I basically stayed in there from about 3 a.m. to 4:30. While I was in the tub, I remember there was a lot of relief because of the water. The water in the tub was a little over 100 degrees. It was very warm and soothing to my contractions. I remember thinking in my mind, wow, these are how contractions really feel, because with my hospital birth, I had never experienced how contractions feel. I know the doctor showed me my contractions on the charts, and I would see them, spike up and come back down, but because I had the epidural, my body was pretty numb, so I just felt a lot of pressure and not contractions. So around 4 a.m., I asked my midwife how far along I was, and she said that I was there. Adeline would be born at any minute at this point. So my cousin went to wake up my daughter Annabelle, and Annabelle woke up excited and sat on the couch. And so at this point, my husband was also in the tub with me. He was rubbing my back because I did have a lot of lower back pain throughout my entire labor. I was leaning against the birthing tub, and I had asked my midwife, when can I start pushing? And she said, whenever you're ready. And so I started pushing, and I was averaging about 2 to 3 pushes per contraction. And I remember it was pretty awesome to feel, it was pretty awesome to know when to push. I could feel my body working through every contraction, and every push, like she was getting closer and closer to being born. So I was averaging about 2 to 3 pushes per contraction. That just wasn't enough. I knew that in my mind, I knew quick enough that I needed to do at least 3 to 4 pushes so that she would be born. At 4:29, I gave my last push, and I felt Adeline leaving my womb. I literally felt her whole little body just kind of release into the birthing tub. My husband assisted her out and passed her to me through my legs, and I remember bringing her up into my arms from the water and looking down at her and just being so overjoyed. And then I was a little freaked out because she didn't cry. She was moving and, you know, moving her mouth and moving her little hands, but she didn't make a sound. And I asked the midwife right away, like, is it okay that she's not crying? She said, yeah, she's fine. She's content there in your arms. She's happy. And there was a few seconds later, Adeline made her first, I guess, cry. She just made a little whine, and that was it. So having had a hospital birth and a home birth, I can honestly say the pain levels were pretty similar. At the hospital, although I had an epidural, there was still pain of pressure. There was a lot of pressure in my body, and there was a lot more fear as well, not knowing what my body's doing. The doctor would say push, and I had to push. I mean, I didn't really know. I didn't feel my body telling me to push, but I had to listen to the doctor and, you know, follow their orders. And at home, the pain level, I mean, contractions are painful. There is life, you know, trying to make its way into the world, so it's going to be painful. But I didn't feel scared. I knew what my body was doing. I felt my body working with me. I know I told my body push, and it worked with me, and it guided me to really getting through my labor. The greatest thing about having a home birth is that you're in the comfort of your home. I didn't have to pack a hospital bag or stay overnight in a hospital and eat hospital food and be constrained to a bed. I was able to give birth and make my way into bed and tuck in with my newborn. It was a little weird waking up a couple hours later to a newborn in bed. It didn't feel real because we had not left home, but it was really, really amazing to just be able to go into bed and not worry about pretty much anything but just resting. One of the special things about having the home birth was that my 5-year-old daughter Annabelle was able to be there. She was able to experience her little sister come into this world. She was able to be there for the excitement and the joy of a new baby being born. I remember asking her afterwards, like I think it was a few days later, like, were you scared to see mommy push and when mommy was making those weird noises? And she said, well, no, you were just in pain. And it was just amazing to me that she saw the home birthing process as something natural and beautiful and not something scary. And I'm glad that I was able to kind of introduce her to that. Before deciding to have a home birth, I had a lot of fears. A lot of questions and concerns and what ifs popped into my mind. What if there was complications, or what if I had to be rushed to the hospital, or the baby needed to be in the NICU? There was just a lot of questions that scared me and kind of led me to just doing, you know, to just being honest with my midwife. So this is my story of my home birth, and everyone has their own story. I was blessed to have a smooth labor with both my labors. If you're considering having a home birth, I hope my story has inspired you. I know it can be scary and you may have a lot of questions, but just do your research and work with a really good midwife. It was a beautiful experience that I would definitely recommend to anyone.